Okay. I want to tell you about paper prototype interview. It is similar to the contextual interviews as you did in project 2, but there are also differences. So in the paper prototype interview with users, uh, you are checking if you're going to the right direction. If you have like some design that is good for you or good for the users. Users have opinions and especially if they see something concrete. It will be different meeting them and showing them some prototype than meeting them and just sit down and ask, what do you need? Would you need something? Would you need the new tool? They would say, well, no, I don't think so. But if you show them something, they could either react, yeah, this is interesting. Yeah, I would really like to use this. I feel that I need this. Or they could say, well, no, I would never use this. But then and especially on paper, it's much better than make a new tool, which is programmed and everything before getting this information. So this is why this phase of doing this interview with a prototype is very important. So don't be afraid of showing users lo-fi prototypes. It often generate good discussions. And this is also because these are rough. These are the users see right away that this is an idea. They can comment and you can meet those comments. If you give them a very very detailed prototype, they will think, oh my god, it's too much work for them to make it all over again. So they wouldn't comment as much. People are often nice, but they understand that on this phase, this is all just on paper. It's on the design. It's in the design phase. So it is often a crucial stage. And also for the client acceptance, that for the total scope and how the basic idea is about the prototype. You can also uh, evaluate your prototypes while by going through the scenario yourself, but this is not as good. It's much better to get the users. Yeah, because you get new ideas, get new opinions. But you should go through the scenario yourself and check if something is missing or superfluous and so on before you go to the users. So do one round like a pilot test before you go to the users. So paper prototype interview, this is chapter 14. It is an informal evaluation session. You go there, you meet users, and you are gathering feedback on your design. And I call that evaluation. And it is 2-on-1. So there's one user and 2 from the development team. But there's only one person talking to the user, doing the interview, and then there is a person taking the notes. So actually, you have the conductor that is running the evaluation, and then you have a note taker. But the note taker is silent, so the session is from the user's perspective. It should be sort of one-to-one, similar to the contextual interviews. Okay, so how do you evaluate? You also have this process for evaluating. And this is also in the book. They are very, very thorough in teaching you how to do all these methods. Um, so first you should decide how many users will be involved, and we had previously today said that it would be good to have like 3 or 4 for each of the interviews. No, I mean each of the iterations. So you have a paper prototype with post-its, you will get 3 or 4 users on that, and then iterate, redesign, make another one, get 3 or 4 users. Many people ask me, is it then okay to have the same users? What would you think? Mhm. Very good answer. Yeah, it's okay, but it's good to have some new. So if you can't get 4 new, then it's maybe okay to have 2 new and 2 old. Because also you can then discuss, is it better now than previously? So it can be good to have some people that were in the previous one, but maybe not 3, 4 times in a row, the same people. Okay, so you have to decide how many users, count in the time for redesign, and of course have everything ready. Then you have a task solving session. So you go there, you introduce this, and you conduct the session, and then you gather the results. So deciding on how many users you need. Yeah, preferably you should find new users to talk to and be sure that the system fits more people than only those you interviewed in the beginning. But you could observe 1 or 2 of the same people. This is what they say in the book. This could take approximately 2 hours. You can't keep people longer. Yeah, now in this book was written 10 years ago. I think there's even faster pace now, so maybe it's hard to get people to use 2 hours. I think 1 hour is almost the maximum you can ask for people from people now. But this could also depend, if you're working in the industry, you have a customer, they have their own company, it's easier maybe to ask them to provide you with users that can take 2 hours. And then you would maybe have a comprehensive design of a big system that they are going to use. And if they're going to use it every day, they would maybe prefer giving you 2 hours if the system will be more usable for them. So it's all about give and take also. Um, we should try to include all user groups in its evaluation, and of course we have to phone them and check how they you know confirm the evaluation with them. They don't really say decide how many users, but we said here earlier on that you would need 3 to 4 in each iteration. Yeah, it's not like a it's not like you need 40. It is. And why is that? Why can you only take 4? Is 4 enough? Why do you think so? Do you think 4 is enough? Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. This is one of the reasons that it takes reasonable time to get 4 users. And in my experience, when you have the sixth, seventh, eighth user, you start to see the pattern. You start to see that there are these problems here, and you get to know them over and over again, you know because especially if you're focused on really finding serious problems. Now you've done this first prototype, and you want to know if it works or not, if the idea is good, if the flow is sort of okay, and if there are some problems, if they just stop and say, I don't know how to continue, all of them will stop. you know it is a problem. And you can see that with 4 users, and if you add four and you have 8 users, you will see the same problem with the remaining, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. So it's a waste of time, actually. If there is really a pattern, if there are some serious problems that everybody, all of the 4 users experience, the the remaining 36 will also have it. If you see, and that is very boring, seeing the same problems over and over again. so so it's much better use of this 40 people to ask for to evaluate this prototype, change something, get new for, and then change something, get new for, and so on. Okay. When you're evaluating, you have a short introduction. This is similar to the contextual interviews. So, and it's mainly or similar bullets here. You introduce yourself, the goal of the evaluation. You explain why you use the lo-fi prototypes, and this is because you're able to change, and you can tell them that if they comment on something, you would maybe discuss an alternative design alternative. And you always have to also explain to them that you will not use their names. People are sensitive to that. You shouldn't tell that you know, um, John Smith had serious problems, and he was very irritated and angry and blah blah blah. People don't want to have that information, maybe. So it would be just user one or expert one or something. You could categorize them according to the user groups. That's okay. But yeah. So you explain that they will get full confidentiality. Yeah. And this also means that you are not supposed to store the information. Sometimes if you are recording or something, you should not use their names on the recording. Yeah, and then you could ask about their job or their way of working, their background. And then explain your roles. And then when conducting the session, you have this transition, and you could say this as it is here on the slide. Now I want to ask you to use the prototype. Here's the main screen or homepage, and here are the tools for keypads and mouse, and you could give them pencil or pen, and then ask them to look at the prototype for a few minutes. This is like an open exploratory task. And this is in Icelandic there. And then after they have explored it for some minutes, you could give them a task, user task. And this could be one example. You want to order beefsteak for the evening, use the delivery.is website to do this. So it's really very clear what the user should be able to do, but not how. And this is not a user story. A user story would be, as a customer, I would like to order goods at delivery.is because I would like to save time. But here it is like an example. I would like to order beef steak, and this you could maybe say beef steak for 4 people, uh, approximately 800 grams. So not they are not supposed to decide any data like that. You know, you could give them like strict orders in what to do. And um, and we observe people and take notes, and then they have the prototype in front of them, and they say, oh, okay, I'm supposed to order a steak. um uh, 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 I probably have to choose meat, or maybe beef. I don't know where to go to see all the, so they are asked to talk while they are doing this, and you can understand what their problems are. Okay, and you ask the user to use the prototype, and if they can't find something or something, you can try to change the interface quickly as possible, and then they see also that you are really collaborating and you want to get their feedback. And if they say, what does this do, you could just say, try to push it, not tell them this is the button to do this. You could just ask them to, yeah, try to push it, and then you give them the next page that this button has effect on. Yeah, this is in the beginning. The open session should not take more than 10 minutes. And then it's good to start really asking them to do precise tasks. And um, like for the steak example, when they have chosen meat, then you have to have maybe some different types of meat there, beef and I don't know, pork and so on, maybe some categories, and you pick meat, and then you have to have a new one showing the next categories, and so on. So you can actually design the interface according to the tasks you have. So you should actually, the information in the interface has to match the task. You don't have to design everything, like also for pork and poultry and so on, if you are not asking about that. So just one happy path through the interface, so the user will be able to do your task. And you should go through all the main scenarios in the evaluation. So when the user has finished one task, you could ask them, okay, and then what would you do next? Maybe they would then say, oh, okay, I would like to order French fries with it, with the steak or sauce or something. So, and if the system doesn't work as the user expected, you could just ask them how they think they should proceed, and try to understand what was it that didn't work as they expected. And when they have finished, and you maybe, if you have a design alternative, you could ask them about that. So first let them do one line, like one happy path, and then you could ask them, but what if if the system would work this way? And the note taker has to be very precise, really say, checking everything that happens and so on. And the authors of the book, they don't like videotaping and recording. So they think it's too hard for the users. So that's why they want a person there with a book and pencil and just write down everything that the user did. This is their approach. Okay, and then after the task solving session, you should have a summary. So and you thank the user for the participation, and you describe your understanding of what uh, he liked and disliked, and then you ask about this. Do you like the system? Would you pay for it? Would you recommend it to others, and so on? Yeah. If we could only complete 3 issues in the first version, what would you pick? But if only two, which would you pick? So here you are actually forcing them to have an opinion on your interface, and seeing if they think it's of any value. Um, yeah, maybe we should watch this. Oh, sorry. Where is it now? Uh-huh. So you see the approach, So it is a lot of work doing this, having all the possible alternatives there. But it is also a lot of waste if we have programmed everything and people don't even have to use it or have the need for it. So even though it seems a lot of time, take a lot of time, it is really popular to use the prototypes, and people think it's very, very valuable. Yeah, so the note taker must be very precise or meticulous, and they have to write down each interaction, identify each piece of the UI that was touched and changed, and also write user quotes. But this person should not ask questions. We had this, yeah, and then there is this wrap up. So that should not take more than 10 to 15 minutes. It is different from the contextual interview wrap up in that way that you summarize what they liked and didn't like about the system. So you are actually checking if your interpretation is correct, and you did that also in the contextual interviews. But then you were checking if your interpretation of their way of working and their problems. But now you are summarizing what they liked or didn't like about the system or prototype. And if you are not able to cover everything in the evaluation, you can bring it on out here and just get the first response. Yeah, so like we said, you could force them to both ask about the satisfaction and the prioritization at this in the interpretation session here. As a result, you can get problems, and you can collect that in a document like this. You should make a summary of the results of the evaluation, and you should redesign according to the results. So, okay, what data should be collected in this stage? It's usually only user problems, problems that the user are experiencing in the paper prototypes. And sometimes you count how many problems the users had. You can also categorize the severity, how severe were the problems. You can also count how often they solved a task. So if you have like 5 users, did they solve all of them or only 6 of them? And for each task, you could calculate how many solved each task. You can count total positive and negative comments and how often the user misunderstood the interface, how often they were annoyed. You can count mouse clicks. So there are actually many many alternatives to count count what is happening. Usability problem is a difficulty for the user. And it affects the user satisfaction, the effectiveness or efficiency. And it can lead to confusion or error or delay for the user to complete some tasks. So this is the effect that it has on the user, but it is a problem in the functionality, in the structure, in the look and feel that makes the system harder or more time consuming for the users. It's always from the user's perspective, and it impacts the user. So the severity is grouped by how much it impacts the user. So the very serious problems are the problems that where they stop solving the task, and the serious ones are when they are they have a long delay, and a minor is like it's just a little hiccup in the use scenario. This is an example of results from a usability study. It was a study on a running web, and we had only four users coming. And we got these 16 problems. And we grouped them in these categories: major or severe, the six at the top, and then medium and minor. And you can see the number of the users that experience the problems really defines the severity. So we had a list there of the problems we found, and then we explained each of the problems like this. But having a list like this is maybe enough in the paper prototype stage, because then you can define what to redesign. I would like to tell you about two cases of people doing evaluation with users. There are these two people. Actually, it wasn't. Um, it was not David Beckham and that we met, but I met a handsome guy that was similar to this guy, and he was a usability expert, a specialist, working in Sweden. He had a PhD in human-computer interaction, and he was working with different companies. And we interviewed him for 1 hour to understand the challenges that he had while involving users in their software development. He also had this lady, and it was not. I only use them as a metaphor so you can sort of have a picture of some people. It was a young. She was 35. She was a. At first, she was like the UX designer in a team, but then she later on she became a user experience expert. So, yeah, the guy, he was 46. He had 13 years of experience in different consultant companies and had integrated user experience in several software development projects. And when we asked him, okay, how do you get the user's perspective? How when is it important to involve users in the software development? He said that the strategic vision and the goals for user experience were really important, and it was important to define that before the actual project starts. So, for me, he is saying being in the first diamond there is very important, the work that happens there. After all his experience, he is really summing up. He has 13 years of experience and has a PhD in this area. So having him saying this to me really made me more focused on the vision and the first phases. He also said that having the holistic view of user experience is missing when you are using agile project management. And evaluation, it's done in cooperation with the team. And he says that most of the user testing should be done before the production starts. He's also saying it's important that it's on paper, on the paper-based prototypes, really in the first stages. And then once in a while they start making the prototypes, make them running, start to program the prototypes. The lady, she was younger, she was 35. She had a master in media technology science and she had 4 years of experience from working in the industry. Yeah, and now she had become a UX specialist, and she was very successful in her work. So she had now, at the point that we were interviewing her, she had permission to hire more people in this area. What she did, she really emphasized being a team member and understanding the people that were working in her group. Um, so if she designed something on paper, like a paper prototype, she always checked the person that she knew was like the lead programmer, the technical guy. She asked him to come and look through the paper prototype and check if there was something like really strange or something that they absolutely couldn't do or something really awkward. So she checked the leader in the team, the informal leader, and then maybe redesigned and then showed it to the team. So she had really checked if it was okay. She thought it was really hard to find timing for the evaluation, but she just asked people to come over during lunchtime. She invited them for a salad or something and showed them maybe paper prototypes for 13 minutes or something, 30 minutes, half an hour. So everything has to happen very, very fast. And this was her way. She didn't have 2 hours, but she asked people to come over, like some people she knew. And can I show you my paper prototype? We are designing this and this. So she was very clever in using time and using her connections, and she was really positive example of how to integrate user experience activities. Yeah, so when we went through these two cases, these were, we interviewed 21 person, and we thought these two people were the most positive people, like success stories. And of course, there can be no generic conclusions drawn from only these two, but it was very interesting to see that they wanted evaluation. They did very much of the evaluation on paper prototypes and in the beginning of the projects. I want to finish. It will only take me 2 or 3 minutes to show you this. I know that I showed you this maybe more than a week ago, but now I want to revisit it. We did this survey in Sweden. It was Johan that was our master student with me and Åsa Kajander. And we were checking usability techniques in Scrum. And we had 49 participants. And what we wanted to know was what methods are you using? And we asked 49 people, and they 30, more than half of them were using lo-fi prototyping on paper or wireframes and so on. It was quite popular. 73% were using workshops, and then they were interviewing people and doing meetings. Informal usability evaluations, evaluating paper prototypes was not as much done, and not formal either. But lo-fi prototyping, the subject that we were covering now, they more than half of them were using that. And they were also using it very frequently, you see, once a week or more. So it is really a method that is much used in the industry, both frequently and by many. If we look at what methods do they think are very effective, they are saying here what are the very good, is this method very good, fairly good, neither good or bad? The highest rated method is formal usability evaluation. You will learn about that later on. You will do that in project 4. And the lo-fi prototyping get quite high. More than half of them say it's very good, and 25% fairly good. So it gets quite good rating. But there are 25 here that say neither good or bad and fairly bad. But for the workshops, there's none that says that. So it's only get good comments, you see? And also the informal evaluation only gets good comments. Okay, so this is what we covered, the lo-fi prototyping. That's from chapter 13, and evaluating lo-fi prototyping, or the paper prototype interviews. I call it evaluation because the users are there and they are giving you feedback. They are commenting. So that's why, but they call it an interview. This is it's a question of terminology. I told you 2 cases of user-centered evaluation from the guy there with the PhD and the lady. They were both UX specialists, and then we discussed again the user-centered design methods used in the industry. Thank you for attending. It was nice to have you.